Hey everybody, welcome to another Rackspace Office Hours Hangout. My name's Alan Bush. I'm broadcasting live from the castle. Rackspace's headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. We're bringing you our live weekly show about the cloud, about the technology, and the people that make it work. And joined as usual, once again, by Drew Cox.
Less usual these days, and I refuse to take any causation credit for the change in viewership. I think that's correlation.
Does not imply causation. Does not imply causation. No. Well, it's really good to have you back, Drew. I think we had a couple of really solid shows without you, but I don't think that there's anything that should be inferred from that. So
No, the quality of our guests has very little to do with me being there or not. Actually, we might be able to get better guests when I'm not around.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you did.
Yeah, Paul has a hard time being in the same room with me. I don't know what it is.
No, it's absolutely great to have you back. So, I was running solo. Tyler, our longtime producer and director behind the scenes, was out for a couple of weeks as well, and that led to me holding down the entire ship by myself, and it really reminded me just how much I appreciate how much you and Tyler are there to help out on everything. So, glad to have the old gang back together. So,
we're happy to be back. Happy to be back, and glad to have a guy on the team who can handle his business solo when necessary. Well done. Thank you.
Exactly. So, hey, let's do a little show today. It's a kind of a show that we've done before, but we've got some stuff to add to it. So we made Tyler blush. Look at that. Yeah. But no, we've kind of done the show before, right? So we've done several different shows about Black Friday, right? It's something that happens every year, and it gets more and more important and more heavy toward the e-commerce side of things, right? Every year. So, every year the proportion of people that spend their money online versus in a brick and mortar store, that goes up. Also trending with that are mobile aspects of things. So. It's nice to see that happening more and more online, but at the same time, that also means that if you are an e-commerce site owner or operator, you really need to have a plan in place to get through that big holiday time. So we've talked about this several times. I mean, basically, that's really what the show is about, right, Drew? I mean, it's about having a cloudy application that works and it can handle that. Those spikes in traffic.
Yeah, I mean, we're both proponents of customer success. That's one of the things that drew us to Rackspace. It's one of the things that is so exciting about the cloud, but there's no bigger platform for success or failure than the intensity of the holiday shopping season, especially Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That window right there can be make or break for a lot of businesses. So as those businesses more and more adopt the online footprint, the e-commerce approach, whether that's mobile or desktop or whatever, we want to be a part of seeing that transition succeed and businesses thrive because of those big opportunities and those spotlights that get put on their products and their platforms and the things that go along with selling their wares online.
Yeah, definitely. It's I mentioned we've done basically the same show before, right? And we have. And what we want to talk about today is the same thing we talked about almost a year ago, and that's basically, hey, we've given you kind of this outline of how to get your shop ready for Black Friday. But since the first time we did it, we had a year's worth of changes in technology, new improvements, different service options added on. We've had another year go by, and so we're going to go ahead and talk about 5 or 6 things that have changed here at Rackspace in the last year that are really going to be beneficial to people that are trying to set up, and scale up for Black Friday. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We'd love to hear from anybody out there. It looks like Skip has already joined us as usual. Skip, great to have you on again. And anybody else that's watching, we would love to hear from you. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can just tweet right at us, right? So use this hashtag CloudQA. It's like right there. I'm going to try to point to it right there. Cloud QA, you can go ahead and tweet at us that way. We can kind of multitask, especially now that we've got Tyler and Drew back. We can check that out as well. Additionally, we're using this really cool new wrapper for our Hangout. It's called Crowdcast, and it allows you to interact directly from within the Hangout, right? So there is a question and answer application right in there. You ask us a question and we will answer it. There's also a little chat section where you can say hi if you want. So please interact with us. These are a lot more fun when we have an interactive audience, but we're going to have fun no matter what. So let's get into it. Drew, let's talk real quick about kind of this basic outline of how to scale up for a high traffic event. Just to give that brief overview real quick before we jump into some of the things that have been improved in the last year.
Yeah, and before that, the conversation I think it's August why we're talking about November, and that's because now is when there's no fires to put out. Now is when you can take your time and do this excellently, so that by the time that traffic does hit in a few months, you've done your homework, you've done the pre-work, and it's just a matter of being there to execute. You've probably practiced a few times, you've run those fire drills. If you've ever heard me say anything, it's probably something to do with running fire drill and testing. But the reason we're talking about this whole conversation in August in preparation for something that is in November, the end of November, is because now's the time. You will not be disappointed that you started work on this early, and taking your time through it means you're not running around with your hair on fire the month of November. You're able to maybe spend a little bit of time with your family, maybe do some of those other things that are important in your life, and still take advantage of that very large business important time of the year. So, scaling out for a big event. The basic concept is the resources that you need today in August are probably fewer than the resources you will need on Cyber Monday to handle traffic on Black Friday. So why spend what you need to spend to handle that big onslaught year-round? It doesn't make sense. That's poor economics. Spend your money wisely. So how do you get from point A to point B today traffic to Cyber Monday, Black Friday traffic? Well, that process can take on more than one form, but the concept is to understand where your solution needs to be bolstered and identify how to bolster that part of the solution. Really leveraging tools that can be local, that can bounce traffic over multiple devices is going to be hugely helpful. So talking about how you handle networking, how you handle DNS, how you handle a CDN are going to be big parts of that conversation. But knowing where to apply additional resources and how you're going to do so is the big part of that. And you're going to have to come to a decision: do you want to do that manually, or do you want to build a tool or build sets of tools that can automate that process so you can just be there to mature and you don't having to take actions unless there's a fire. So those are really the high-level big conversations that you need to have, and most of that gets identified through load testing. So today you don't really have that traffic. How can you replicate that traffic to find out what would break? Well, you build a load testing approach, which includes monitoring. And there's a lot of tools to do that. There are partners that can do all of it for you. They can build specific load testing protocols. They can monitor as well, so you can get the full picture from one partner. What that's going to do is cost you more money, but be more holistic. It's going to be a collaborative discussion with that third party, but they're going to be able to do lots of fine-grained recommendations, build fine-grained tools that can go through every step that you deem important. And then there's something as simple as just throwing a bunch of connections to your environment and see how it responds to that. That's a very blunt tool. It's not giving you a lot of insight, but it gives you a ballpark estimate. And really there's anything in between those two extremes. But we've had shows that have talked about some of those midpoints. We've had a show with Load Impact where we talked a lot about their offering. I've used Blitz.io to load test environments. I've seen Loader.io do some great things. I've used it. So there's really a ton of options when it comes to load testing. But until you've thrown the traffic you expect at the environment you intend to use, you don't know if it can handle it. And if it can't handle it, you don't know what breaks first and what needs the attention. So that's really a crucial first step in knowing where to go from here. And that's where I would start. So we've had this discussion in multiple forms and iterations over the last couple of years, but from that kind of concise, simplified, not in the weeds at all view of what it would look like, we can talk a little bit more about some of the specific tools that you have here at Rackspace and some of the partners that can help augment those tools to flesh out what it would look like for you to scale out your environment.
Yeah, I think that the main thing is we've always on this show talked about kind of this idea of having an application that can horizontally scale, right? So set up a load balancer, set up one or more web tier servers, application tier servers, set up the database on a different layer, and we've recommended several different ways to do that. And I think that Black Friday is just the day where this all comes together, especially for those that are in that e-commerce area. And so, having that seed config is kind of what we call that, and it allows you to kind of scale out. And we've had many different, as Drew mentioned, talks on some of the finer details of that, how to actually test that out. And but now when you add on some of these newer tools, I think that's really what we want to start to talk about, is kind of how that changes the way that you're going to go about that. Every year the cloud changes, and so now we have so many different tools and ways to make this happen. And so let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these different ways that we can actually make some of these changes. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about, just at least in order of how recently they came out in relation to Black Friday of last year, whenever we would have had this conversation last, workload optimized servers are something that I think have really helped our customers a lot. So this is, last year one of the things that we mentioned was performance cloud servers were new within the last year. So we've actually got even a new generation of servers. Now these are servers, and exactly as it sounds, right? These servers are optimized for a specific workload. They might be optimized to prioritize compute over different resources, prioritize RAM over different resources, right? These are servers that are built for a specific purpose, and you're going to want to put them into your workload in the right area and for the right purpose. And having this option to just have a very specific type of server built out for you, just like that, using our cloud APIs, I mean, that's great. It can really change the way that you design your application.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're talking about adding a caching layer, you probably don't care so much about the amount of database space you have. You're more concerned about memory. So traditionally, you would have to select the flavor of server that had the right memory components, and you'd pay for that and the network throughput and all the other things that came at that bundle. But with an optimized device, you're able to say, well, because memory is the most important thing, I can buy the device that has been optimized for memory and not worry so much about paying extra for compute I won't necessarily use, for storage I won't necessarily use, that kind of thing. So you're able to take the specific component you want to have the most resource and test. I always recommend that. You may find that you can get away with less on an optimized server than you would have to get away with on a performance server, or maybe you can afford to use more than you're able to use on a regular performance device. So if you're able to test one or two or three in parallel to verify that you're getting the right return on that investment and the right value from that device, well, that's going to behoove you to do that now, because that's going to give you certainty that you've moved forward with the ideal device. But now that we have all of these varieties of options, it gives you the opportunity to really your approach. And you may have an environment that made it just fine through last Black Friday. You did great. Hopefully you've been building on that success this year with new marketing campaigns, expanding your customer lists, things like that you're able to leverage so that this coming Black Friday is bigger than last one. That's the ideal situation to be in. But because you're expecting more traffic, you may be able to more efficiently handle that higher traffic load. But there will be changes that will be required, and this is a great place to come in and say, I'm going to tune this tier or this configuration with targeted optimized devices instead of with a more general purpose type device. So definitely a good conversation to think through and to have with your IT team or the decision makers in the organization. How can we target our next deployment to be more tailored for this approach? And your team extends into Rackspace. You have to remember that you have resources here in our organization and across the globe with Rackspace that can speak into that conversation and point you in the right direction. It may be that on metal works for a specific component as well or potentially better than workload optimized. Well, have that conversation, talk through it, and discover how best to test the options on the table. So we're always happy to tailor that next step for your specific business needs. Here we're talking broadly, generally, but if you call us up and have an account in an existing project, that gives us a lot more context to speak to you about your solutions instead of broadly about e-commerce generally.
Yeah, and Drew, you brought up a great point, right? So test them out together, right? You might have an environment right now that takes advantage of our performance servers, right? And that might be working really well for you, but would it work more efficiently? Would it help you to process orders more quickly and get them out the door with better success rates? I mean, that's something that you want to find out. And now, this is why we're doing this show right now, right? It's August, it's hot, it's 100 degrees in San Antonio, it's horrible right now, it's nowhere near Black Friday. So why are we doing this? Because now is the time to do this. Just like you said, there are no fires right now, that you're not under load, you're not scaling up like crazy for Black Friday. Now's the time to do this, and not just to set up an extra load balancer or whatever. We want you to actually go out there and try something new. See if you can do something a little bit different to have an impact on your business. Does it? Yeah, great. Does it not? Okay. Well, you've spun up something for a couple of hours to test if it works or not, and that's a really good price to trade for the knowledge that it is not going to help you out down the road. So definitely try things out. I mean, that's what the cloud is for. It's not, it's just there for you to actually go out there and kick the tires, and not just to set something up that's a virtual version of a dedicated environment. We really want you to come in, try new things, experiment, test something side by side with what you already have in production right now. Can you make it a better version of that simply by moving to a workload optimized server or one of these other options that we're going to talk about right now? I think one other thing I'm going to mention about the workload optimized servers is that these all are actually part of what we call boot from volume servers, and those because they boot from volume, they don't have a hard disk available for you to use.
Jeff Kelly.
So, hey, look at that! It's Jeff Kelly. Hey! Haven't seen him in the background in a while. Yeah.
Nearly as long as I've been away.
Note to self: book the conference room much sooner next time. Yeah. So anyway, so boot from volume, right? So these workload optimized servers, they don't have a system disk on them, right? They're just going to have whatever disk you attach to that. And when we say attach a disk, we're really talking about cloud block storage. So you would have to specify a cloud block storage volume to be the boot volume when you spin up your server. So that's nice, because it will actually allow you to kind of leave your block storage in place, disconnect your server itself, and spin up a new larger size server if you want. we also have some boot from volume options for other server types as well. So it's something that comes up quite a bit. Yep.
Yeah, and it allows you to clone that as well. It gives you a lot of the similar functionality with a little bit faster boot times, which is kind of nice. Uh, and really, you mentioned this earlier, the economics of testing in the cloud are completely different from the economics of traditionally testing. Because you can stand up a server for 30 minutes and pay for just 30 minutes, because you can stand up exact replicas of your existing servers for at larger sizes or in different situations. That allows you to spin up exact replicas of your environment and beat them up. I mean, you can throw tons of traffic at it and take them down and have zero effect on your public production running the business day-to-day solution. So to be able to spin up an entire replica of your environment and have it up for a day, that's a fantastic proposition compared to the traditional dedicated model. And doing so really behooves you because you can test things out that would be very risky to test out in production on a non-production environment. And you can run all sorts of various scenarios that you would like the data on, but don't necessarily want to have a dev environment that you stand up all the time. You just need to verify a hunch. I recommend it thoroughly, and the economics of that in the cloud are much more reasonable than the economics in a dedicated environment.
Yeah, definitely.
So, is that the pouring rain you're listening for? Because
yeah,
it's Texas.
I think it's raining in San Antonio, which that's a rare sight. So watch out for that.
Traded 100 degrees for 100% humidity.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All of the rain is just evaporating before it hits the ground. So
it's a steam bath out there.
Yeah, it's a steam bath. It's extra humid. Yeah. So speaking of booting from volume, right, and cloud block storage, we actually that's the second thing that we wanted to bring up as well. So we have the next thing that, and this is one of the most recent new product features that we've seen. Now you can actually attach cloud block storage to your on-metal servers, right? So if we remember on-metal servers, that's a actual bare metal server that is deployed through the same APIs that you use to create a cloud server, right? So it's that same rapid deployment, hourly billing. Again, going back to the economics of setting up and testing, and it allows you to scale up very quickly, add a whole bunch of resources in a very fast manner, and then scale those back down. But you get that performance and the performance of a dedicated server. So it's really great to have. One thing that we did notice that it could be improved was the ability to attach cloud block storage to it. So you can have, imagine you are crunching a big data set or something like that. You don't have to have it all on disk. So good way to add that as well. Yeah, so that's just a really minor change. It's nothing big there, but definitely something to consider.
It spreads out your options. It's the kind of thing that you can use to create some additional redundancy if you need to attach additional data quickly to the horsepower that on-metal offers. So it gives you quite a bit of options. It gives you another set of options, and you always, with block storage devices, have the choice to go spinning disk SATA drives or SSD for higher performance. And that's going to really depend on your needs. Again, a great thing to verify through testing. Does the additional performance of SSD make up for the additional cost? Is it so much more performant that it's worth the money to spend? Or can you get by with the SATA drives? That's going to be a decision you can easily kind of kick tires on, verify, and move forward.
Absolutely. You always got to go back and test that. All right. So it looks like Skip had a question, and I was hoping to get a little bit of clarification. Skip wants to know about load balancers, and I think that get a little clarification there. But Skip asks about a workflow load balancer. Would that be in place of a physical load balancer such as an F5? Oh, okay. So if you're using a workflow optimized server for that, I think that's where we're going with that. Yeah. So you could use a workflow optimized server as an HA proxy load balancer, right? But you wouldn't necessarily, it might not be optimized for that, right? You might be using the wrong tool. So I've used this analogy before, right? I can pick up a crescent wrench and a nail, and I can use that crescent wrench to nail that nail into the wall. It would probably work. It would probably not be good for my knuckles, and there's a better tool for that job. So with those,
drywall would not be happy.
No, not at all, not at all. So with that, you could absolutely use an F5 load balancer, right? If you're using a Rack Connect, that's our hybrid cloud configuration that takes physical devices and allows them to connect to the virtual cloud servers. You could be using a Rack Connect solution, which we recommend for a lot of people, especially as you grow up and as your business matures and as your compute needs mature. Like, we really recommend that a lot. So you could use a physical load balancer like an F5. You would also just use a cloud load balancer with a workload optimized server. That's kind of what we would recommend using. Either way, just depending on what your current setup is.
And Skip, I can speak a little bit more specifically about the way Rack Connect works versus pure cloud. So if you have an F5, you're paying for the bandwidth through the F5. If you then have a cloud load balancer accepting public traffic into that workflow or workload optimized server environment in the cloud, you're going to be paying for the outbound traffic that's going through that load balancer, that cloud load balancer. So there are some caveats there on bandwidth. Understand what you've already paid for and where your consumption is there, because it might make sense to go ahead and use cloud load balancers if you're pushing up against one of those, not limits, but thresholds that you've already set. And using workload optimized servers as load balancers is certainly something you can do. Your throughput's going to be based on the size of that device, so keep that in mind. But your F5 is a very powerful network device that can be used for a lot of things. It's not the ideal solution for everything, but it is a powerful solution for a lot of things. So definitely a conversation to have. As far as cloud load balancers, it gives you some additional control, but it also has its pros and cons. So that's a conversation where the specific use case should be brought to the account team and talked through, and they'll be able to clarify a little bit more clearly on the spend of it, as well as and sort of which combination of options would work out best for you. There's lots of ways to handle networking, and an F5 is a very valid way to do quite a bit, especially with Rack Connect. It opens up a lot of options. You already have one that's going to give you a ton of tools. So your conversation is pretty wide open with your team. I would start that conversation sooner than later.
Always get in touch with your account team. We are more than happy to give you a general idea of what's going on, what these new options are, but no one's going to know what's going to work best for your environment better than an account manager sitting down and understanding and taking a deep look at what you're already running, what your business goals are, what your IT goals are, and sit down, have that account review with them, figure out what's going to work best. That's what we absolutely recommend for everybody. All right, so we've been through a couple of different new and improved tools here at Rackspace that are going to help you get through Black Friday. Not just get through, but really thrive on Black Friday. Anyway, so the next thing that we're looking at is a dedicated instances of Object Rocket, right? So this is something that's really great for people who are might have some PCI compliance needs or HIPAA compliance needs, something like that. They get their own dedicated instance. You don't have to worry about the public options that are out there. You also get a big performance improvement, right? So I mean that's the nice thing about that, is that it is tuned for performance. It is a dedicated instance. You're not sharing with anybody else. So if your e-commerce site runs on Mongo or needs a Mongo component, having a dedicated instance of Object Rocket is going to do nothing but improve that performance out there. It allows Object Rocket to handle the management of the infrastructure, and it allows you to just get your app up and running and start running it on a dedicated instance. So just another option, just a really a small tweak in what's available from Object Rocket, but it will help a lot of people this coming year as they scale up for Black Friday.
Absolutely, and there have been some additional additions. We'll go with that. To the Object Rocket offering, there's Redis as a service that cache engine platforms people use for e-commerce. So really helpful tools that leverage a lot of the expertise that Object Rocket has amassed and a lot of the geniuses that are there in-house at our Object Rocket office. I would definitely take advantage of those if they are available to you and to be plugged in or transitioned to for your solution. Managing your own Mongo or Redis or whatever is totally dependent on the people and their expertise within your organization. So if you already have them, go ahead and use them. If they would be better suited, retasked within your organization, we have people who can take that task on. But if you don't have the expertise and don't have the time to train it, it can be a real amplifier of your momentum to transition to one of those as-a-service products like what Object Rocket can offer. So consider those types of things as they continue to build out their product suite with big data solutions and all sorts of things. It's worthwhile to keep tabs on what they're offering and what you can transition workload-wise off of your people and off of your in-house servers, because they're going to be able to do a great job managing, maintaining, and optimizing those things for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So along the same lines as with the databases, right? So the other aspect that we've changed recently with our data stores team is the ability to replicate a cloud database, and that's something that I think has been missing for a while, and I'm really glad to see that that feature added. So you're actually able to take a MySQL instance and add replication to that. So now you have a high availability solution, and that's one of the things that I think was missing, and personally was kind of holding me back from recommending that for a lot of people. So if you have if you have a high traffic event, Black Friday coming up, you really need to have some type of high availability situation set up for your data tier. We've talked about different ways to make redundancy and availability in on the web and application tiers, but as far as your data is concerned, having the ability to set up a replication system on our cloud databases is a big improvement. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Because again, I mean, it's taking away that need to manage everything on your own. You focus on the application side of things, the data infrastructure layer, that is taken care of by us here at Rackspace.
Yeah, there's a requirement to scale all tiers of your environment, and this just spans the ability to use a variety of tools. Typically, we would have recommended a server running SQL with replication, and probably had the conversation around tools that can make that replication better and more optimized. We've had a show with Scalar, there's GenieDB, there's a handful of companies that have gone specifically after scaling SQL for the cloud, and they are in place because of this need that we've seen to horizontally scale every tier. Databases are specifically difficult. So definitely something to consider as far as how to approach that. Again, test both options. But cloud databases is now a tuned and optimized environment that can be replicated. So it may be the right solution for you. The costs are a little bit lower. Also, your access to make tweaks, tunes, and changes may be a little bit lower. So if you have a DBA in-house, that's a conversation to have. Maybe that person is better suited having full access, full keys to the kingdom, in which case you should use that resource wisely. We have DBAs in-house here, so if you want to go with cloud servers and have them leveraged against that database to optimize them, that would be a great way to move forward. Again, there are more than one way to solve that problem. So consider your options, understand what you have at your disposal, and with that addition of cloud databases, it becomes ready for prime time in a way that it was really a well-suited development platform for quick verification of functionality, but as it has matured, it's become a far more solid solution for businesses to use in full-scale production. So test it, make sure it's going to fit your needs, but fantastic option available to you these days.
Yeah, and definitely. Then, oh, go on.
That just kind of keeps us moving as things that have been announced relatively recently that have just enhanced existing solutions is the CDN. We've added deep functionality to our CDN, partnered more deeply with Akamai, and we have a whole show that we did earlier in the year that covers a lot more of the nuance of the Rackspace CDN product. It's backed by the enormous reach of Akamai and their enormous power, and it's a very helpful tool to extend the functionality, the durability, and the efficiency of a site that you've built or an application that you've built. So definitely something that can make a big difference. If you're not leveraging the CDN in any way, it's going to be huge. If you are leveraging the CDN currently, something certainly to look into, but there's a whole show on that. We won't spend the whole day, the rest of the hour talking about it, since we spent an entire hour earlier in the year. But that's definitely another component of the expanding feature set.
Yeah, if you were to ask me which of these items that we've been talking about are going to have the most impact on our customers, I would say that cloud databases has the potential to have the most impact on our customers for this upcoming season, right? Or this season. So the reason that I'd say this is that it allows you to offload some of the processing from your site, right? Anything that's static can automatically get pulled in. The big difference, and like Drew, you mentioned, we already have an entire show on this. It's a really, really solid show with I think I've just been told that I said cloud database is not CDN. Let me rephrase that. I think that the Rackspace CDN has the potential to be the most impactful to our customers in a positive way for this upcoming Black Friday and Cyber Monday season, right? And the reason is because, like I said, it offloads some of that processing from the rest of your application. Drew, you mentioned this to me in passing a while ago, and I thought it was a great way to. It was a great example, right? So you said that there's two different ways to scale, right? And I'm not going to paraphrase it because I'm already confusing CDN and databases. But what were those two ways that you said that you could improve performance?
So you can either throw resources at a problem, give it more horsepower so that it can handle the load, or you can ask it to do less. So if your code is doing fewer things, then it can do more of those individual things. So if I only ask you to do one thing, you can do that one thing a lot. If I ask you to do 20 things, it's going to be more difficult for you to do any one of them, and I'll have to bring new people in to help carry that load. So those are the two sides of that coin, and it becomes a conversation of how elegantly can you structure everything from a code and application side as well as from a resource side. But if you're asking your servers to do very, very little, they can do that very effectively. If you're not going to make any changes on the code side, you can throw more resources at it. Resources cost money to operate. Code costs money to develop. So that's a single upfront cost for a more efficient application, or an ongoing cost for more horsepower to run that application. And so that's the conversation and the continuum on which everyone lands somewhere. And in the interim, it's usually going to be the best band-aid solution to throw resources at it while you are shoring up the application. But if you're just doing one and neglecting the other, you're neglecting a lever through which you create better outcomes, and both of them really need to be considered. That's one of the things that I feel like gets lost. Usually an organization will focus on one, and they become myopic in that view, and they lose the opportunity to get value from the other lever. And so something that the CDN does, I think this is the direction we're going, is it takes a lot of work off the servers. So that server now has less to do, so it can do it better. It can handle more users because the users that come to it ask it less. And that's going to pay dividends down the road when you have to support Cyber Monday, Black Friday traffic. If you can handle twice the users because each user is asking half the work of the server, then that's value. You've just said, I can now do twice as much with the same environment because I've added the CDN that's taking half of the work. And that's a theoretical number. Who knows what it is for your application? But the CDN is now doing work that my servers were previously being asked to do. I'm not paying any more for it because it's being done as a bandwidth fee that's I'm paying anyway, but it's happening closer to that user. It's work my web server doesn't have to do. It's general benefits. The impact of that one change is enormous and can pay massive dividends for load times, can pay massive dividends for being able to stretch your existing environment further than it was previously able to go, and is really worth checking out. If you haven't leveraged a CDN, the odds are very good that you will see very large improvements in multiple different categories of those KPIs that are important to you.
Yeah, so you mentioned two things that I think that bear repeating, right? So you talked about the serving things closer to the customer, right? And taking the page load time down, and that's what you really want to do. You want to decrease the amount of time it takes to load a page. There are a whole bunch of different studies that have shown just how quickly people abandon pages, and when they abandon a page, they abandon potentially their shopping cart. So the faster you can get resources, anything there, again, taking load off of the application itself and serving things statically helps a lot. I think the second thing that you mentioned was around economics again, about one-time cost versus ongoing cost, right? So you have a one-time cost of changing your code to take advantage of the content delivery network in this case, or throwing more servers at it, and that's an ongoing cost. I think we can more broadly say caching.
The work is very minimal to take advantage of the CDN.
Oh yeah, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, code changes can be small upfront costs or very large depending on how far you're going into the code to optimize things. But this is a very small outlay of time and resource to get a very big return.
Exactly.
So the amount of impact you get is huge for very little effort. So that's I think the cost benefit here really leans heavily towards leveraging a CDN versus not. And I recommend, with the time frame that we have, an enormous time frame, that's a very easy, very simple step to take. And I would also recommend make measurements now so you can make that change and measure again afterwards. And that way you can take that back to the people who care about those metrics and say, look, at the improvement that I've been able to make, this is what leveraging this new tool has provided for us, and we expect the results to be ongoing, especially into these really important windows of time that we're going to be seeing through the holidays.
Yep. And so you can also try to cache other things, right? So not just the static files. I mean, you can cache certain queries. That's what one of our guests a couple of actually just over a year ago now, was ScaleArc, right? And they do a lot of query caching, right? And so they do a lot of MySQL query caching. So that's one way that you can do it to kind of speed things up. We've seen a lot of great success with them, with our friends Bold Apps, who've been on the show a couple of times as well. They use ScaleArc in their configuration. Caching other parts of your site through something like Varnish or even using a Redis queue for caching can help as well. So there's several different ways that you can add caching, and that goes to that upfront layout that Drew's talking about as far as costs. So you might have some upfront costs to switch over your code to accommodate caching, but none of those options are going to be as easy and as cheap. Time is money, and everything, as cheap as just setting up some caching through the Rackspace CDN. I mean, seriously, with just the default settings, you're going to see a decent return on that investment, and it'll only take a few minutes to get it set up. So that's, again, why I think that we're going to see the most customer benefit out of that specific option. Hey, Drew, how would you recommend somebody keep tabs on all of these improvements? Is there a way to look at their overall performance of everything all of these changes that they make?
Monitoring might be a good way to do so. There's actually a lot of conversations to have around monitoring. Application monitoring, load times, things along those lines are crucially important. You need to know how well your application is doing on the platform you have provided for it. But you also need to know how well the platform you have provided for it is performing, so that you can make those changes. You may discover that there's a specific device that's continuously having problems, and the other servers doing that same task are not having that problem. That may be a situation where you just kill it and replace it. It may be a situation where you drop it from your load balancer pool and do some triage to understand what caused that problem. There may be something inherent in an upgrade or a change that only affected one device, or that didn't get all the way to that one device, that you can do your RCA, find out what happened, and then go back into your process and make improvements so you don't continue seeing that same problem pop up. But understanding how well that infrastructure is doing has been made far more streamlined and far more visualized by our Cloud Intelligence platform, which is a tool that takes our cloud monitoring, which is an infrastructure monitoring tool, and can plot that out in a nicely visualized way and give you insight into how key intermittent problems where you'll have packet loss every now and again, or you'll have your memory will spike out of control for a period of time and then go away. Those kinds of things are really hard to troubleshoot. But once you have a graph that's out over time that says, here is the cadence that this is happening in, here are things that correlate to that issue, that's going to help you in triaging that issue. It's going to help you in getting to the root of the cause. And I think Cloud Intelligence does a fantastic job of giving you that visibility. Those sorts of data points are only valuable if you can interpret and then act on them, and visualizing them well is a great way to help you interpret them. Being able to map them on top of other activities is going to only add more data and then help you understand how to act based on that information. So really a really helpful platform that can give you a lot more insight into how the infrastructure is handling the application and the users interacting with that application. So definitely worth checking out. We'll have a show with that group here coming up shortly. It's been available for a good long time in beta, but now it's public availability. So for more information on that, see us in the near future. But monitoring is a crucial component in understanding how your application is doing, how the infrastructure is doing, how your approach to your e-commerce or your IT platform is doing as a whole. So understanding the health of that from day to day is crucially important, and knowing that the changes can be traced back to causes allow you to go back and solve those causes.
Yeah, I hope that a lot of people take advantage of cloud intelligence. I mean, it's just a value add service that we've put together. Really helps you, and I mean, this is probably why they named it that way. Understand and comprehend what's going on with everything, and we put together some really nice looking dashboards as well. So you can not only receive all of that information in a single pane, especially for customers that are rack connected customers, hybrid customers, get all of that information together, but you can also set up alarms a lot more intuitively via this application, right? So in the past, it has been sometimes difficult to create alarms for specific events. There's a much more step-by-step walkthrough for setting up different types of alarms with cloud intelligence. So not just getting that information in a dashboard or kind of passively, but actively go out and say, hey, by the way, this threshold that you have indicated has been tripped. Let's go ahead and let you know about that so that you can make an informed decision more rapidly than you would otherwise.
And to piggyback off that, we've had an additional feature added to our auto scale since the last time we had a feature is coming prep conversation. Auto scale can be triggered based off of webhooks that can be called when an alarm is triggered. So you may set a threshold for memory usage, CPU usage, something along those lines, that when that threshold is tripped, it fires off an alarm. That alarm calls a webhook that then builds an additional device to help out with that task. You need more memory overall to handle the growing traffic, so another server is deployed and put into that load balancer pool, which then is able to be that additional resource to carry the load of that work. That's one of those levers that you can pull to provide better outcomes for your users and not experience the same degradation or slowdown or even outage that ends up resulting in lost revenue. You're going to have people bail from the site and not make that purchase or not click that pre-order button or whatever it is that you're pushing at the time. So to add on to the cloud monitoring conversation and to talk further through the additional tools that you have this year that weren't available last year, leveraging the data that you're pulling out of cloud intelligence and the alarms to actually act against your environment and help plug holes where they may be forming is a hugely valuable component to handling that big traffic. And talk about this very briefly. And we mentioned at the beginning, you have the choice as to automate that growth or to build it big beforehand. Even if you've built it big beforehand and you've done your load testing and you've verified that it can handle 1x the amount of traffic that you expect, then that's great. You still need to be able to monitor and maintain, because who knows who decides to really amplify your message that day, and you may see far more than the expected growth. You may see double, triple, quadruple what you had planned for. You need to have that monitoring so that you're aware of while it's beginning to spike, that spike is coming, so then you can take action. So that is a really crucial piece of the puzzle. Auto-scaling is great and can do that for you to a degree, but you have to spend the time now building it to do so. Planning ahead and having it built is a great solution, but it doesn't wash your hands of responsibility of monitoring that environment and being ready to swoop in with a plan to continue scaling.
Well, and I think that's one thing that we can really drive home here in the last couple of minutes before we sign off is you need to have some type of a plan. Just saying I'm going to get through this Black Friday season, you're not going to succeed. You are either not going to stay online for the entire time, or you are going to do worse than you potentially could, right? There is a balancing act, right? You don't want to spend so much capital to get your e-commerce store up and running that you don't make a profit, right? And that's why we are recommending doing things like testing out right now. That's why we're having this show right now in August, several months before it's time to actually go live with Black Friday. Test it out now. Prepare for Black Friday. Understand what your application does now. Try to figure out what you want your application to do. What are your goals? How many units do you want to sell? How many pre-orders do you want to have? How many new subscribers are you looking for? Can your site do that right now? If it can, great, awesome, that's really good news. If it can't, well, then something needs to change. Figure out what that's going to be. So that's what we're recommending doing right now, is testing out some of these things. Kick the tires on an on-metal server. Kick the tires on Object Rocket for Redis, for Mongo, for dedicated versions of those. Kick the tires on some of those workload optimized servers. They might be perfectly optimized for a specific feature of your application. Test all of this. Set up the Rackspace CDN to offload some of that. Even if you don't sell, even if you don't have a Black Friday presence, set it up. Man, it's easy to do, and it'll take a lot of load off of your existing site. Test this stuff now. Understand what's going to happen. When you start to incorporate these into your application architecture, and then make the changes that you need to. So get out there, get to testing, and we'll see what happens on Black Friday. Give us a call, and we'll help you get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. Black Friday is not the only high-traffic event, but certainly one of the biggest. So all of this conversation is applicable to high-traffic events, whatever they might be, whenever they might be. And as you're going through the process of verifying that you can handle that expected traffic, and you find out, we never scaled down from last Black Friday, we're over-allocated or something along those lines, that's a great opportunity to save money between now and November so that you can reallocate that capital towards a rock-solid holiday season. And that may be the only thing that you get out of starting early, is identifying, hey, we're oversubscribed right now. We have way more resources in play than we need. Let's be more strategic with the way we spend that capital so that we'll have that buffer and be able to take full advantage of the holiday season. There are so many opportunities for optimization forward to grow and to build an impenetrable solution. Don't forget about the other side of that it's a balancing act. It's about that flexibility. Take full advice, take full opportunity to take advantage of the advice that we can offer here at this company, and the advice that we can offer in your specific situation. Reach out to that support person that is assigned to your account. Have the conversation of what your goals are, what your current solution is, so that opportunities can be identified. They may be opportunities that we talked about last year when we did this that just haven't been integrated, and maybe opportunities that we can recommend from a third party. But we want your business to succeed. We're not here in business if we don't have customers who stay in business, and we'd rather you not just stay in business but thrive. So help us be a part of that winning opportunity and that winning business solution for you. I think that's the heart of what we're doing here. That's kind of the pulse of our intent behind this show and this company, really, is to create outstanding outcomes for our customers so that they're hitting their marks, and that we're being a part of that. We're helping to see it to the finish line.
Absolutely. Another good comment from servers and services are charged hourly, so now is the time to test on a budget. Yeah, exactly. You want to test now so that you're not. Number one, you don't want to test during an event, because that's not testing. That's, I don't know, treading water, hoping not to go under. But yeah, you absolutely test now, because you can test in a much shorter time period, right? Or you might want to test 3 or 4 things in parallel. Hey, A, B, C, D test, something like that. So
testing live is foolish.
Yes.
Testing live is foolish. Don't do that. And going into into a big high traffic event without testing is faith in dust. I mean, you're not really going in with any certainty. You're going in with wishing a prayer, and I hope the best for you. But there are things you can do today that will give you a lot more confidence going into that big event. So that's the whole reason behind this show. We hope to see a bunch of very successful events go on from here through the end of the year, and to be a part of celebrating that success.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. Drew has mentioned it before. We're here talking about the abstract, talking about the high-level things. You have an account team available to you at Rackspace who can help you out. And I'm just going to leave you with one more thing that Skip mentioned. Great input as always, Skip. So Skip says that on any new project, he always asks the Rackspace team for a second opinion. And we definitely recommend doing that. We're here to see you be successful, and that's absolutely what we want to do. Come in, test something out, do some experimentation, and we are here to help facilitate that in any way possible. So I guess on that note, we'll go ahead and just wrap it up. This has been a talk about some of the new things that are available here at Rackspace to help thrive in the upcoming Black Friday season. We're going to do a couple more shows on Black Friday as we go along. There's a few more things that we want to talk about in this same vein. We're also putting out a lot of content on the Rackspace community and also on the Rackspace blog about this. So we really passionately want our customers to have not just a successful but a thriving holiday season through Black Friday and through all of their high traffic events. So we're going to put a whole bunch of resources together to help kind of navigate those waters. It can be a little bit confusing sometimes, and so be on the lookout for that. And shoot us a line if you have any specific questions that you want to have answered during these shows and in the community as well. So I guess on that we'll go ahead and sign off. Drew, great to have you back. Tyler, same. Glad to have the whole gang together. We'll do this next week, next Thursday, 1 p.m. See you guys. Bye.
See you then. Bye, guys.